This podcast was produced by Sean Weston Media.
Do you miss our intro? I think it was a bit short-term thinking of us to get rid of our intro.
What do you mean the bit where I say this is...
Bum, 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 bum. Welcome to
We've still got the jingle. But we
Okay.
don't have that, repetitive intro I used to
What
say.
does the data tell us? Do people like the jingle? Should it come back?
Well, how many of those people have mentioned the intro? 0.
That's true.
So I'll go, when someone mentions it, perhaps listening out there now, if you want the return of the intro, just let us know.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is on permanent hiatus.
You were changing it because your long-term sanity required that you didn't say those words
I
again.
see where you're going here. My long-term sanity, I thought ahead far enough to think that this is really going to bug me down the line.
Yeah,
Are we talking about down the line stuff?
down the line.
Oh, go on.
What's your thoughts on short-term thinking at the moment? Do you feel we're in a global pandemic where businesses are really struggling? How much do you think people are thinking longer term, or are they just thinking in the moment?
I do think we can get caught up in what we're told, because what we're told isn't necessarily the truth. It's just what people want to sell headlines off or get agitated about with no particular grounds for it. But I do think there is an element of people getting caught up in the short-termism of the pandemic, and company decisions come into that, I think.
I do too. It's interesting because I think a lot of us thought the pandemic would be quite short term, but we're coming up to a year of this way of being right now. And obviously we all reacted in different ways when it first happened. So we made maybe some short term decisions that maybe come back to haunt us a little bit in the way we acted as organisations.
Can you give an example?
I mean, I guess, the support that we've given people, maybe relaxing policies, processes, it's okay not to have delivered something, that sort of thing. So we kind of relax maybe some of those business rules that we follow in the short term to help people, which is great. But when something goes longer term, let's say your business isn't doing well, how do you remove some of those things that maybe people have had?
Well, you would hope that the people that had the benefits of the short-term thinking realised that it was only for a short-term moment. And that have you found that there are expectations for those decisions to continue?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very easy to think that way, isn't it? Because something becomes the new norm because the actual outside influence hasn't changed. So as comms people, how do we get people looking forward when it's hard to get out at the moment?
Well, that's a real challenge because we're assuming that communications teams also see things long-term, but there's short-termism in every department across every specialism, isn't there? And communications included.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's our job as professionals, though, to look beyond something and to see how do you come out the other end and how do you move back to plan. So I think that's a really important thing that we have to do.
I'm going to use a popular British high street brand here. So for our American listeners, we have a store called John Lewis, and they're a retailer. They've been around. How long have they been around?
100 years, I guess.
100
Maybe
years
longer.
or so, if not longer, yeah. And it's a reputable brand, sort of lifestyle, aspirational brand. And it's been a high street staple for many, many years. It also runs a business model whereby the employees are partners. So they all have an interest. Say that again?
A vote, an interest.
A vote, an interest in the company. They're all shareholders, basically, of the company. And there are pros and cons to that, aren't there? Because in what we're talking about now, when a company needs to act quickly, say during a pandemic or something happens, and you need to make quick decisions, John Lewis has shown that it's been a little slow to make those decisions than other businesses. So their agility isn't quite as good, even though some would put them on a pedestal to say, oh, this is how you should run a democratic company. But because they have so many voices and people who've been there longer term, I think there's more short-termism in John Lewis than there may be in another retail brand where they make decisions very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples, particularly in retail, isn't there, where you've seen the rise of a lot of these online-only clothing brands that offer something much more online because it is their business model. And older retailers are having to compete with people who don't have that old infrastructure
Yes.
to them, so they're able to just quickly move forward and do something new. You know, same day delivery, seeing what it looks like to wear these clothes, trying them on, free, all these things that it's very difficult for an older company to shift and pivot to do, isn't it?
Yeah. It took John Lewis ages to go contactless when every other retailer had done contactless.
So it's almost, how long does your well-respected brand last when short-term issues hit them and you can't move quickly?
Yeah, yeah. I wonder how the John Lewis Communications Department handles itself on the partnership model. That would be interesting to find out.
It would, but I think we probably see other examples in other industries, don't we? Like banking.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of upstart banking companies, particularly here in the UK, are offering a fully online service. So they're not really impacted at all by the pandemic in that respect.
Yeah. In fact, they're reaping the rewards
Yeah.
of people wanting to digitally bank because they can't go out to their branch because it's closed.
Exactly.
So they're seeing an uptick in people wanting their services. But the older banks that sort of had the short-term view of nothing's going to change, we're too big to fail kind of thing, they are finding out that they don't necessarily have long-term vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't got that there when something happens like this, that you're still thinking short term, what's happening in the next year, then it's game over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because where do you go from there?
What do you like for long-term thinking, personally?
I think I maybe like a C plus. I could do better. How about you?
I'm guilty of too much long-term thinking at the expense of the short-term thinking.
You're already planning that retirement.
I'm
aren't you?
already planning way in it. Well, absolutely. I'm already planning something at how I want something to look a long time from now. And I sometimes skip the steps needed to get there. I guess some companies do that too.
I guess loads do. It'd be really interesting to think of organisations that just completely change what they do.
Yeah.
They really do think, actually, we're going to shut all our shops, or we're going to completely sell a different product. You know, I don't know. It would be strange if a car company turned around and just said, right now, no more combustion engines or something like that next year. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, didn't Mercedes already do that?
I think they did, but down the line.
Yeah.
Maybe that's good long-term planning, that they know that in 10 years' time, they won't be doing any more of this. Stop investment, that's clever.
Down with the combustion engine. Raw.
All hail the electric motor.